Hey, this is Bruce Boudreau, and you're listening to Empty Betters with Nick, Mack, and Harrison.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to episode 179 of Empty Betters. I'm your host, Harrison Scholes. I'm going to toss it across the screen to my co-host, Nick Manella. Mr. Manella, how has your summer been going?
Oh, it is good to be back, fellas. How I have missed you all so very much. My summer is good. Been able to spend some time at the beach, been able to spend a lot of time outside by the pool, which is great. But I am so sick of watching essentially no sports on TV. I do love baseball. I do love the Women's World Cup that's still going right now. But if I have to listen to one more Sports Center report about some quarterback from training camp or where Ezekiel Elliott is going to sign, I think I'm actually going to start swallowing arsenic.
Well, the last one has been settled. Did you see
Finally
that? Sign with the Pats? Yep.
My dad is very happy about that.
Yeah, definitely been passing the summer with some good old Orioles baseball. That's been a real treat for us Baltimore fans this summer, so that's been nice. Speaking of Orioles fans, I'm going to toss it across the screen to my co-host, Mac Vogel. What's going on, buddy?
What's up, y'all? Good to be back. I am pumped to talk some hockey. Feel like Nick said, I haven't had enough of it in my life, so it'll do me some good to just chat about it for a little bit with you boys.
Yeah, absolutely. How's the summer in MKE going?
It's great. It's been a real good summer. We've had great weather, been swimming in the lake a lot. Really no major complaints here. One thing I will say, I got a lot of people kind of getting that I'm sure this is happening around you guys too, and maybe some of the listeners can relate, but it's around this time of year every summer, everyone kind of gets in this like, summer's almost over kind of thing. And I mean, we were just talking about it before this episode even started. It stays warm depending on where you live, especially all you East Coasters, well into late September. I don't know why everybody's freaking out. We've got easily another full month left, and it does no good just stressing about how summer's almost over when we still got plenty of time. So put those worries away, go out on the beach, have another beer. You'll be all right.
Unless you're a kid in elementary school or a teacher, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah,
right. That's what I'm saying.
I think it's been ingrained in us that like end of August is like the end of summer because of school and all that stuff.
The stigma
I will say
is
this.
true.
There's a war on summer right now. Harris Teeter has Halloween candy in the front like area when you walk in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can confirm.
Jail. There's a mall to jail near me that's like it's got a big Halloween store and it's like opening soon. And I'm like, fuck out of here. Get out of here.
Now that's spooky right there.
That is very scary.
Oh. Yeah. Now I'm going to toss it across the screen to our other co-host over in Illinois, Mr. Jackson Gross. What's going on, buddy?
I'm doing all right. It has been a whirlwind of a summer. Been digging down and trying to find some good jobs here and there, but also had some time for fun. Went to my first version of a Comic-Con on Sunday. So that was pretty fun. Dressed up as a Jedi. Bought myself a nice little robe and cloak. So,
which one?
Let's go.
Anakin
nice.
Skywalker. So
which movie?
Episode 3.
Good.
That's my favorite of all time. So was able to buy this.
Oh,
it's a Blackhawk Stormtrooper
cool
t-shirt.
That's fresh.
It's so good. They had all the Chicago sports teams. They had the Packers too. But I was like, I gotta go with the Blackhawks. This is looks too
the crossover
sick.
You never knew you needed. That's dope.
Yeah,
exactly.
That does look fresh.
Yeah, it's been good. And watching Cubs baseball has reinvigorated my love of baseball. So it has been fantastic.
They're giving fans something to be excited about. As much as I hate them, as much as I cheer for the Brewers when I'm out here in Milwaukee, I gotta hand it to them. They've gone on a little run here. I know some friends of the program are pretty excited about it.
And just ready for the end of August. It's gonna be fighting times.
There you go. Yeah, it's been about a little over a month since we last recorded. We're recording this on August 15th. So we're gearing up for the start of training camp for the NHL preseason. All that's going to be coming right at us in about a month's time. We'll discuss some major roster moves that have gone down since we last spoke a little over a month ago. But before we do, I think Mac has a QOTD.
Sure do. Yeah, I've been getting asked this question a lot by colleagues and friends, and so I figured it's probably time to just bring it to the group and address it. So here we go. So it's another would you rather question, and for you boys, I'd like to know: would you rather you have to purchase a puppy, like the cutest puppy that money can buy, right? Like most adorable dog you can find.
Where is this going?
And you have to, I mean, you have to do whatever it takes to just own a puppy, like just take care of him. But on top of all that, you have to walk him once a day down the busiest street, like busiest like area in your city, wherever you live. And it has to be like let's say like a solid 30-minute walk, right? And on this walk, you will lose $100 for every physical interaction that someone has with your puppy. Like if someone wants to be like, oh my God, he's so cute, can I pet him? $100. And you are not allowed to put a thing on him that's like he's a service dog, don't pet him. And you're also not allowed to say anything. Like you can't say anything. So everyone follow that first option, right? You've got a cutest puppy you can buy. You got to walk him down a super busy street, 30 minutes once a day. If anyone touches him, you lose $100 for every interaction. Can't say anything. You just got to be like a dick and walk by him and just be an asshole, right?
Option 2's got to bring the thunder. Let's go.
Option 2. Once a year. Oh, and by the way, you have to do this just for the duration of the dog's life, right? So and you can't do anything to hurt the dog.
Even if it's
no one's thinking about that.
Pouring down rain, you still have to be out there.
That it might be easier that day because not as many people will be out that day. But
you still have to be out there for 30 or 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then and again, it ends when the dog passes away of natural causes. You're done. You never have to do this again. Option 2. For the rest of your life, once a year, you have to find somebody with a pet hamster and replace it with a hamster that isn't that hamster. And you can't repeat people. You cannot, once you've replaced somebody's hamster, you can never do this to that person again. You got to find somebody else with a hamster for the next year. And you if you ever get caught doing this, you're maybe I don't know if you go to jail for something like that or
for
whatever.
Hamster burglary.
I don't know. I mean, you might have to break into someone's house to do it. So maybe I don't know. But whatever happens, you gotta deal with whatever happens having to do this once a year. Maybe you'll get good at it, maybe you won't.
But
that's it.
There's no financial reward. You just
you just have to do this once a year.
So you're telling hold on, just so I
thought
make
you were
sure
gonna tell me I'd make $100 every time I do it.
Yeah, just so I make sure I have option 2 correct. I have to be someone's house, and let's be honest, who has hamsters? Probably a 9-year-old girl. Steal this poor girl's hamster, swap it with a completely different hamster.
Just one that you got from PetSmart or whatever. Yeah.
Why do I feel like I'm gonna be like Indiana Jones, swapping one hamster for the other one?
Well, here's the deal. There's a lot of strategy that could be involved here. Maybe 5 people with hamsters, right? And maybe that buys you 5 years because you got one per year. Although I don't think hamsters live 5 years. So that 5th person, you might need a new one by then. Anyway, you could let's say I know 2 people with hamsters, right? And 1 year I'm gonna switch the hamster with a PetSmart hamster of guy number 1, and now I have guy number 1's hamster, and guy number 1 has the PetSmart hamster, and he doesn't know I did it successfully. It's great. Now I have that hamster on deck for guy number 2 for next year. So I'm taking care of guy number one's hamster, unbeknownst to him. And then year 2, I've already got it ready to go. I'm gonna give guy number 2, guy number one's hamster, and then
Keeping the money moving.
Guess what? Year
What
3,
cash flow?
I can get guy number 2 to a guy number 3. Like, you always have a hamster on deck. You only have to buy one hamster at the very beginning for the first year if you're smart about it.
What happens if like we fail? Like we're not able to get like whether we are arrested or we're just like caught in general, or the hamster that we buy like dies or something.
Let's say you go to jail for like 2 years or something for B&E. I don't know if that's reasonable, but let's just pretend for a second. You don't have to do any hamster thievery for those 2 years that you're in prison. But as soon as you're out, it's back on, baby.
Okay.
So before we give our answers, this is a question that's talked about at your office?
Everybody's asking. Everybody's
asking. Yeah, you're
Well,
right.
if the people are asking, we got to let them know, right?
Right. I figured it was finally time to bring it to the group.
Nick, I definitely want to hear your answer first.
So my thoughts are two-pronged on this. So firstly, I feel like if I'm walking an extremely adorable puppy down the street every day, that puppy, and I'm not saying anything against rescue dogs. I think everyone should rescue your dog, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's good. It's humane, whatever. This dog is probably costing me between $3,000 and $10,000, right?
I mean,
like if we're talking like purebred corgi puppy or like purebred golden puppy or something,
I suppose so. I mean, I personally think you could find a rescue dog that's cute as balls, but
sure, I had one. It was great, but like, come on, like,
I mean,
if like people are going to be like stopping to take pictures of it, we're looking at like a couple $1,000s here. Right. So that on top of like all the other dog expenses. And the fact that like I'm just imagining like walking this thing down like South Charles Street in Baltimore, and like you walk it by Be More Licks, and like people are going to be like taking pictures left and right. I might as well just light my wallet on fire. So I am a little bit intrigued by, you know, 007 hamster mode here.
Once a year.
So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking my friends and I, New Year's Eve every year, we have like what we call hamster heist 2000 and whatever. We get really, really trashed. And hopefully like we find someone who's like away for like the holidays, and we just like bust into their house, swap the hamsters, and get out.
That's genius to do it around Christmas time. There's going to be lots of people that are not there. Although if they have a hamster, somebody's probably there to feed it, right?
I mean, it's a hamster. I mean, when people have hamsters, they last for like what, 6 months anyways.
True.
And I was going to say, you could go on the day that like they leave.
I almost used a fish for the second option, but I thought that'd be too easy.
Yeah.
Hamsters are hard. Not from personal experience, but I have
all look kind of different. I feel like it's really hard to find. It looks exactly like a different one.
I am not going to mention names, but we have had an interview guest on this podcast who tried to slowly get rid of a hamster and failed, and it lasted about 6 months longer than it probably should have, because it was a whole thing. If he's listening to this, he's going to die. Yeah, I'm going to go hamster. Nick sold me on all that. That's kind of why I want to hear your name.
Harry, I feel like we could knock ours out. Like we could do the hamster heist together. Like I'll help you. I'll boost you up to get into the window on the second level. You help me crawl through the basement or something. We got this.
Very down.
Yeah, I'm on hamster heist as well.
Plus, like if we do it in Baltimore, hamster thievery is like the 112th most pressing crime that night anyway. So odds are that we're going to get away with it.
Now, see, I'm going to be different here. I'm going to say that you should walk your dog, or I'll walk my dog through like Chicago. Because as the social media expert that I am, I can turn that around and start a dog Instagram for this dog. And then start recouping my money that I would lose for people touching the dog for every 30 minutes of them outside walking the dog and people touch it. Gotta think like a business.
And that is when you know you have a Gen Z on the podcast.
There you go. Yeah.
The guys who are approaching 30 quicker than 20.
Yeah. Wow. That is
that was the generational
take.
Yeah.
Call it dog vlogs.
There you go.
Dog vlog.
That's 90s kids versus 2000s kids in a nutshell.
Definitely.
Clip
I'm
it.
right on the edge. I was 2000, so I got a little 90s in me.
Still 2000.
The two who willingly chose to like be in someone's house with a rodent instead of making money off of their dog.
It's one way to paint the picture. Mac, that was an excellent question. Thank you for a
Which one are you going with, Mac?
Oh, I said I'm
He said
hamster
hamster
heist.
heist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Hamster 007 was probably the funniest thing I've ever heard. So thanks for that. Thanks for that
That's
laugh,
true.
Nick. All righty. Well, that hamster heist question of the day was brought to you by Brackish Life. Let's see if I still remember this. If you're like us and grew up on the water and outdoors, then Brackish Life is perfect for you. They have a wide selection of gear from UV shirts to hoodies and hats. It is Real Bay apparel made by Real Bay people. Head to www.brackish.life today to check them out. A little salty, a little fresh. Brackish Life.
Also, big shout out to them with their Rink to Reef Foundation. I know Kyle's brother is spearheading that campaign. Rink to Reef is partnering up with the Caps to do the hockey stick into oyster restoration habitats thing. I know Peter Bondra's involved. It's an amazing cause. If you want to hear more about that, head to the link in our bio today and we'll have some info there.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. Obviously, all of this news is kind of slightly outdated at this point, but we are going to give some opinions on the matter, especially considering the Caps and Pens are involved. So let's start with what I would call the biggest offseason move, maybe to date. That could be argued, but in my opinion, it is. Erik Karlsson is now a Pittsburgh Penguin. Before I read all the transactions, initial thoughts. What went through your head when you saw I sent this?
I feel like we all heard it was coming very vocally in the group chat going back to May. So
yeah,
it's about time, you know. I mean, it sucks. I was texting with like some of my Caps friends in a group chat, and some people were like, oh, you know, some more casual hockey fans were like, oh, you know, this guy might be a little bit washed up. I'm like, no, he had 100 points last year and 25 goals as a defenseman. So on a very, very bad San Jose team. So yeah, this is a problem.
Mac, Jay?
It's a problem. I will say though, I expressed a few sentiments to you that before this amazing Norris Trophy winning season that he just had, he was kind of like, I thought he was kind of washed up, like Nick just said, some of his friends thought. And, you know, the injury is a question mark. Obviously, this is me as a Caps fan trying to like find a way to not hate this, which like, if he has a season like he did last year, then there's no sugarcoating it. This fucking sucks. Like, but we just don't know what we're going to get. So I'm going to try and be a little calm until we see exactly what type of Erik Karlsson he's going to be for you guys.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, because I think we've talked about it in the group chat. The fact that the Norris Trophy is basically turned into whoever is the best offensive defenseman in the league rather than who's actually the best defenseman. Not saying that Karlsson can't defend, but it's going to be an interesting thing to see how Pittsburgh handles all of this. And for a team that is in desperate need of youth and speed, you add another old, slower guy in that sense. And before this year, he hadn't played a full season since 2015. So bear that
also
in mind.
fair. Also fair. I would say older, yes. I think he's like 33. I think he just turned 33. I won't say he's slow. He's not a speedster like Cale Makar anymore, but you know, he is a very good skater, obviously. You can't put up 100 points and not be. Before I give my take, let's just kind of run down the transaction here because there's a lot to go through. It's a three-way trade involving the Sharks and the Canadians. Casey DeSmith and Jeff Petrie went to Montreal. Petrie actually just got traded from Montreal to Detroit, like what, an hour before we started recording here?
Just about.
And then Mikael Granlund and Jan Ruda go to San Jose. Karlsson, like Nick said, 25 goals last year, 101 points, the Norris Trophy winner. This is a fun fact. The only other time in NHL history that a reigning Norris Trophy winner was traded in the following season was in 1961 when the Canadians traded Doug Harvey to the New York Rangers. Thought that was a little fun fact from our friend, Mr. Frank Saravelli. Here's my big thought, right? Karlsson's great. I think he's going to do wonders for our power play. I think that he's going to have a very good season with us. I think the guys are pumped. Win, win, win. Here's the biggest win. And if you're a Pens fan, you're going to hear me on this. Not only did we get Erik Karlsson, which is great, I think what's even greater, they got rid of Petrie, Granlund, Ruda, and Smith, who all combined for $15.7 million of cap space. And in change, they get back Erik Karlsson for 10. There's not a fan alive who wouldn't take that, because those three of the four names that I just named suck. Like straight up. You could argue Petrie maybe doesn't suck.
I don't think Jeff Petrie sucks, but I totally agree with you in the sense that clearing the cap space is the biggest win out of this deal.
I have a question for you, Harry.
Sure.
Who are your two goaltenders?
Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic. Little band-aid there. Could be
no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. You know, like, I'm not going to sit here and say the Pens are going to win the cup. I don't think they will. But to get rid of those four guys who I would argue are, you know, Hextall's two of those guys are Hextall's worst signings, and then you get Erik Karlsson back, I'll take that.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm just busting your balls. It's definitely It's a good move. And the shedding of the cap it basically means you're getting Karlsson for like a little bit cheaper if you want to look at it that way. But
yeah. They end up saving 3.1 in cap and get Karlsson. So now the Penguins top four going into this season after free agency and trades. You got Graves and Letang on the first unit, and then Pettersson and Karlsson on the second unit. I will say, Pettersson might be one of the most underrated defensemen in the league. A lot of people sleep on him. If you're big on like JFresh scorecards on Twitter or X or whatever the fuck you want to call it these days, he's one of the most underrated players in the league defensively. So keep that in mind. So what I want to ask you guys, because this is what we all want to know, right? We know what Pittsburgh is. They're a little older, and they didn't get any younger, but they did just get a hell of a defenseman. Do you think the Penguins can make the playoffs this season? Or do you think they will make the playoffs this season?
That is such a hard question to answer.
Yeah, that's tough.
And honestly, like Mac brought up a fantastic point earlier with the goaltending thing. I think the other thing that jumps out to me, because I think forward-wise, yes, the Penguins make the playoffs this year. Your third defensive pairing is starting to scare me a little bit if I was a Pens fan.
Yeah, POJ, he's going to have to start. Like,
and Ruedel too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It all comes down to how they play, you know?
Yeah, POJ is going to definitely need to step up a little
bit. But, I mean, I've seen this movie 1,000 times before. So, yes, the Penguins are going to make the playoffs.
Oh.
I'm gonna go ahead and say no. I think to your original question, can they? I would say yes. I'm going to say no, they won't, because the goaltending, my original point, I'm not sold there. And another thing here that I think matters a lot is Jake Gensel being out to start the season for who knows how long, right? Because he had ankle surgery or something like that. I feel like that's going to be a bigger issue. I mean, going back the last couple seasons, I feel like you guys have historically started the season without somebody major, whether it's Crosby or Malkin, or somebody's always dealing with an injury from the summer before. But I feel like Gensel is low-key one of the worst people to be missing to start the season for you guys, just because he is a little bit younger and kind of like has that youth and that spark in the lineup that you guys might be missing without him. And I think that might play a little bit of a bigger role than some people are thinking it will.
Yeah, it's tough because it basically comes down to who do you think is going to drop out of the playoffs, and then even with including the Penguins, those are teams that are going to jump in. The Sabres, maybe the Capitals jump back into the playoff chase at this point. So you got two teams below the Penguins, and then someone of like the Islanders or the Bruins are really the only two teams above them in the East. I could see them potentially missing the playoffs, especially Boston, considering everything they lost, both in trades, free agency, retirement, which we'll get into. So it's going to be a tough field. The East again is going to be super duper competitive as it always is, and so it's just going to come down to, is Buffalo going to make a jump? Is Washington going to make a jump? Are the Islanders going to fall out? Heck, maybe the Rangers fall off a little bit.
Okay.
But it's such a tough field. Overall, I'd probably say no. I think you guys brought up great points about the goaltending, and I think you can get by with a leaky bottom pairing defending if you have a above average to near like elite level starting goaltender, and the Penguins just don't have that.
I think
Great point.
the thing that makes me believe that they're going to get in again somehow is that, like Mac, you talked about Gensel being out, and I'm not going to deny that is a huge loss for them. I mean, arguably, outside of Sid, I would say probably their most important player. But this team just has monster back half of the seasons. Like December through April, they're just so good. And I just don't think, we've seen them come back from horrible opening starts to the season how many times?
Yeah. No, you're so right about that. I mean, that's what that team does. And like I said, they've had to do it so many times because they typically start their season without somebody important, suck for a while. Then after the Christmas break, they're like, you know what? Let's be sick. And then they are. And then that's kind of how it goes. But I don't know. Based on what I saw last year, that they were kind of a bubble team, could have made it in, didn't. This year, I really don't see it being that much different with Erik Karlsson. I don't know. Maybe this is just wishful thinking because I know that if the Penguins do make it, that's less chance that the Caps make it. But I don't know. I'm talking myself into them missing. So
I think pretty much in the East, you can say that there's going to be like 4 teams that missed the playoffs that could have made it in if they were in the West.
Probably. Yeah, and I feel like we're a broken record. This is like 3 years in a row now. I feel like we're saying something similar to that.
Yep.
All right, so I guess you guys could probably predict what I'm going to guess here, but I'm going to say that they make it. It's a hard one to say because, like I said to Mac when he mentioned the goaltending, both of those goalies have a very strong injury history. And if we go down the avenue of like relying on spicy pork diet to save us, we're going to be really in some deep trouble. I think they make it. I think that some of the moves that Dubas has made has kind of put some energy back into the lineup. I think the fact that Dubas is just around has put some energy back in the lineup. I think the guys know that they are probably have one last chance because truthfully after this season, I don't think that like Malkin is going to be able to keep up that level of play. Gensel's a pending free agent. God knows what he's going to do. And then they got to extend Sid. So we'll see. I like the Lars Eller edition. I know you guys said that you kind of hated that as Caps fans, but not a bad move. I'll take him as a third line center. So I'm going to say the Penguins make the playoffs. I don't know yet if they win a round, but we'll see.
I can see it. I mean, I think like what they did, I mean, this is just going off daily faceoff, but like line 2, you've got Riley Smith on the left. Line 3, you got Lars Eller in the middle. And then on line 4, you got Achari on the right. And I hate every single one of those lines so much right now as a Caps fan.
Like the big problem last year, and everybody knows this, the top 6 was fine. They carried the load, but that bottom 6 sucked. Like just not good at all. And, Dubas did the best he could. He tried to revamp it. A young guy like Drew O'Connor, he's going to have to step up this year. He's shown some promise at times. If they could shed Jeff Carter, I would love that, but I don't think we're going to get that lucky. Then, you get Nieto and Pitlick, some filling guys. I think they can make the playoffs. I think they're better than the Islanders. I think they're better than the Capitals. Beyond that, I'm not so sure. We'll see.
I think we're glossing over my favorite part of this trade, though, and that's as Erik Karlsson slides out of San Jose. Guess who conveniently got traded to the Sharks as part of that deal?
Was it Mike Hoffman?
Mike Hoffman.
The return of Mike Hoffman?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And if you know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's our Pittsburgh Penguin breakdown of the Erik Karlsson trade. We got 2v2. Nick and me in agreement that they'll make it. Jackson and Mac in agreement they won't. We'll see how it goes. But let's move on to another team in black and gold who has made or lost a lot of key players this offseason. The Boston Bruins. They lose David Krejci and Patrice Bergeron in back-to-back weeks to retirement. Let's just do a little bio read here. David Krejci. He
Krejci.
retired Krejci, sorry.
Yeah.
I say that wrong. Retires from the NHL at 37, drafted second round, 63rd overall in 2004 by the Boston Bruins. Over 1,000 games played, 231 goals, 786 points, and obviously a member of that 2011 Stanley Cup championship. What are you guys going to remember this guy as?
Like one of the most underrated players of all time, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that's just a great point. And the fact that he's on his Michael Jordan arc, considering the fact he retired from the NHL twice. But yeah, just an annoying player to go up against. I remember the 2013 finals, and he was just annoying because he was such a good two-way player for them, especially on that second line or that first line in spots. So a menace, but one of the, I want to say, like, nicer menaces, not like the other guy we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing really further to add other than I feel like this is almost like a Nick Backstrom guy, comparing it to a guy on the Caps, like somebody who's just consistently put up really strong numbers and just for some reason never gets included in the conversation with all the top stars around the NHL. But yeah, hats off to the guy. He had a hell of a career, and the numbers don't lie.
I think he could have gotten some serious money had he looked outside of Boston for places to play. I think, like a team like Detroit, like you think about like them in like 2010, 2014, they would have thrown at least 6, 7, 8 at him at some point. But so underrated on the power play for them, just did everything from like puck retrieval in the corners to winning faceoffs to setting up their big weapons. I mean, the guy essentially made that Bruins power play function.
Yeah, definitely one of the most underrated guys. You'll probably hear a lot of Bruins say this, a big playoff guy, right? I mean, we just read his career stats, but in the playoffs, he had 128 career points in 160 playoff games, which is pretty damn impressive. So hats off to Mr. Krejci. And then their captain, Patrice Bergeron, the week prior retired. The 38-year-old spent his entire career with the Bruins, a member of that infamous 2003 NHL draft, one of the last ones left. He played 1,294 games over 19 seasons, 427 goals, 1,040 points. He won 6 Selke trophies. That's the most of all time. I mean, I think I know what the answer is going to be, but how are you guys going to remember him and his legacy?
Greatest defensive forward of all time.
Hard to argue. It's really hard to argue with that, though.
Yeah, like it is. And I mean, 19 seasons, guys, is the stat out of all of that like just really is tough to wrap my head around. Like
it would have been 20 with no lockout.
Yeah. Yep. And it's just something that's impossible to do, near impossible to do, I should say. But I feel like there's few and far between for guys we're going to see do this in the rest of their careers, just play 19 seasons alone, let alone put up the numbers that he did, win the accolades that he did with the 6 Selkies. And he's a guy that, everyone that's ever played with him has nothing but good things to say about him. So I think that speaks to his character as well.
I mean, obviously, like Jay said, best defensive forward maybe of all time, you could say. Definitely one of the best leaders. I know that this came out earlier this season, but like he was almost like the team therapist, really. Like guys would come to him, have dinner at his house, talk about like, maybe some issues they're having on the ice or in the locker room or whatever. So an all-around leader. However, and I'm going to ruffle some feathers here, I feel like he got maybe a lot more praise not a lot more praise. He's a good guy off the ice too, and I think that contributed to a lot of the love. But I saw someone on Twitter the other day that was like, I would take Anze Kopitar over him in a heartbeat. I'm on that train. Personally speaking, oh yeah.
Oh, I think if we redraft the 03 draft, you take him first overall, no questions asked. I'm sorry, Fleury can go suck it.
Well, Fleury's going to have the second most wins of all time, so I'm going to put a hard stop on that.
I think I'm with Nick.
Yeah.
No,
for
I would take
Kopitar.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. It's close. It's close, but no.
He's got more cups. he's going to have a higher points per game.
That's a team thing. That's not individual.
The cup thing annoys me so much when
He was the
people talk
captain.
about
So he
like,
gets to touch it
individual
first.
guys.
Wait, wasn't Dustin Brown the captain? Not
Well,
Andre
he's the
Kopitar?
captain. He's the
Yeah.
captain now, but I mean, I don't know. Let's do what you want with that.
I mean,
But
yeah, he was
he
the
was the best-
assistant
I
during
think
the
He
cup
was the
run.
best player on the team.
Patrice, Bergeron, we're looking at first ballot Hall of Famer, no questions asked, unanimous. We're looking at
Mhm.
Jersey gets retired like within the next 2 to 3 years. I think
Yeah.
you're looking at a statue outside TD Garden, and I
Yeah.
think you're looking at change the name of this damn trophy.
Yeah, you literally might be.
Ooh.
Like, I don't know
I
if
like
I can
that.
argue with anything Nick just
I mean,
said.
I'm not going to sit here and say that I would. He's the best defensive forward of all time. Yes. But if you ask me who I would rather have, I'm going to take Kopitar, personally speaking.
Oh, I don't
All
know.
I'm the only other things I'm going to say is World Championship, World Junior Championship, 2 Olympic golds, a Spengler Cup, and a World Cup of Hockey gold.
I
So
think, let me
just
argue
like
that-
Max, you go.
well, okay. No, I know what you're going to say. But I think that Bergeron is a more irreplaceable player than Kopitar. I think that what Kopitar does, you can get, and this isn't to say, I don't want to take anything away from Anze because he's an incredible player and a generational talent, but I think that what Bergeron gives you is harder to find in a player than what Kopitar gives you.
Like what Kopitar does, you could get from Alexander Barkov.
Yeah, or somebody like I think it's just easier to find offensive firepower than it is to find what Bergeron has, which to me is just the whole package of like just absolute like smartest hockey IQ and just like unbelievable sense for the game on every side of the rink, on both sides of the rink, every corner. He knows where he's supposed to be, what the right play is. I think he's just a smarter player.
It's the Gretzky effect. Like there were guys that were bigger than Gretz, faster than Gretz, had better shots than Gretz, but he was never out of position. He always knew where everyone else was, and he was thinking 5 steps ahead of everyone else.
To play devil's advocate for Kopitar, I will say it's hard to put in like some of the juniors and the Olympic gold medals, considering Bergeron was always
cry
on
me
the
a
much
river
better
on that one.
team compared. What is Kopitar?
Czech.
Czech?
Slovenian.
Where he's probably one of like 3 NHL players from Slovenia currently in the league. And
Very true.
Team Canada is just the Metro All-Stars at that point. So I will play devil's advocate for Kopitar there, but I still think it's tough, but I'd probably rather have Bergeron.
So follow-up question to this. People are saying like, where does he rank in terms of like greatest Bruins of all time? I think we all know who number 1 is. You're never going to convince people that Bobby Orr wasn't the greatest Bruin of all time, but I think this guy's no question at number 2.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say Zdeno Chara is the second greatest
Really?
Bruin of all
Ooh.
time. What
Some
he
people would probably
did-
put Bork in there too.
Phil Esposito, is he anywhere up there?
He would.
Yeah,
he'd
old heads
probably be
would
up
say
there.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
no, I think Chara
But
was
Espo
the
moved
Boston
around a little
Bruins.
bit too.
That's true. He was not a career Bruin. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know where he's top 3, and he's
Yeah.
not 1, so he's 2 or 3.
Right.
I think we can all agree top 5, right?
Can we
yeah,
all
easy.
agree on like statue, or am I pushing that too far?
Oh, he gets a statue.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
He probably will.
I think
Maybe like later. Maybe not like right now.
I don't think it'll
No,
be
yeah, like
immediate, but like
5 to
within
10
10
years.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like 10 years feels right for a statue to me. Something about like having a statue of a guy who's like 42 like feels weird. Like
yeah.
I feel like he's got to be dead or old.
Yeah, that does feel a little weird. The last thing I'll say, and this is it, and it's kind of what Max said, where he was like, he doesn't like the cup thing. I get what you're saying, and I understand. But when you take like the best player, if you're like the best player on a team and you kind of put them head to head against another best player of a team, I feel like it's not totally fair, but it could be fair. They both had really, like, the Kings and the Bruins were both like probably on par with each other for the better part of 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying, I get where Mac's coming from.
That's fair.
So yeah, I'll probably end up getting death threats from Boston people, but that's okay.
All right, well, let's get some more death threats from them when I answer this question. What do you think these retirements do to affect the Bruins this upcoming hockey season? I'll go first. I'm going to say what I said last year, and hopefully I'm right this time.
Oh, no.
I think they're going to miss the playoffs.
Ooh.
So I'm gonna have to kind of agree with you. And I know we could sit here and say, well, the off season isn't over yet, and there's still time for them to do stuff. But I'm looking at this lineup on Daily Faceoff right now, and unless Pasternak and Marchand each decide to have 65 this year, I think you're right.
I just don't like, and also let's be real. Maybe here's where the death threats are going to come. Let's be real. What their goaltending, like what happened with their goaltenders last year? There is no fucking way that happens again this year. Like that is not, that is, I don't want to use this word.
Say it.
It's a word that starts with an F.
Does it rhyme with puke?
Oh,
Yep. Just saying. I don't know. I don't know.
yeah. I think with losing basically two of your top three centers, you lost at least one forward in your top six, and then another guy, probably bottom six, who is a good two-way player in Foligno and Hall. That's just a ton of production and style of play and leadership to make up for, especially with Bergeron and Krejci. So it's going to have to come down to McAvoy and Pasternak to kind of take hold of this team and be the new Krejci and Bergeron.
I think like in any other division or any other conference, so the West, this team would have a fighting chance to make the playoffs. Right. But when you fall behind in the East, like we saw last year, you're just going to get swallowed.
That's exactly why I'm saying this. I'm not even saying like, yeah, they suck now. They don't have any good players. I'm just like, when you lose enough key pieces, and when you're in the East, enough key pieces means like two guys, maybe three.
Yeah,
like the Sabres could jump these guys.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's next man up. Like there's no fucking room to be mediocre in the East, and I kind of think that's what the Bruins are going to be this year.
It's kind. I kind of PTSD. I have PTSD of this because I remember this exact same conversation last summer, and we were all like mid fringe team, and then they shut us all up, and I don't even know how they did it because I'm looking at the roster on paper, and it just doesn't make sense. I love the defense. I think their defense is solid. I do kind of agree with Mac. I feel like between the pipes can't be as solid as it was last year. And the real stinger for me, when you look at the center depth, you've got Zacha, Coyle, Geeky, and Boquist. I can't put my faith in that.
No, absolutely not.
For that reason, I am going to say I do not think they will make the playoffs this year. And now that all four of us have said that, they're going to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, but we have to double down. We have to do this again. Like, we have no choice.
I mean, I'm down with it. So there you go. That's our Boston Bruins offseason recap. And now this one is going to be a fun conversation. The Washington Capitals have extended Mr. Tom Wilson, the 29-year-old, gets 7-year extension at $6.5 million per. Mac, Nick, I'm going to let you guys take the floor here, but I think the main question people want to know, is this a good deal for the Caps? And, what do you think they're going to do this season? You think they got any more moves? Are they going to stick with what they got?
Mac, I want to hear you first.
I think it's a good move. I think that 31 other NHL teams make this exact same signing if Tom Wilson's on their team already. And I think that we're just locking up our future captain. It's nothing. I have nothing to say that you probably haven't heard other diehard Caps fans already say on the internet. But I have no problem with it. I think he's made it really clear that he wants to be here. The Caps want him to be here. I said many times on this show over the last few months and towards the end of the season last year, I squashed all the Tom Wilson trade rumors right away. I laughed at them. I thought they were hilarious. I never once for a second thought that he was going to go anywhere. And I'm glad they locked it up. The dude is 29 years old.
Which is very young. Let's just get that out there. That's very young.
Yep.
You saying that for him or yourself?
Myself.
Yeah, that's no, I mean, there's other people being like, oh, but injuries are a question mark. I'm like, okay, whatever, man. He had one long-term injury. I'm not worried about it yet. Knock on wood. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear Nick's thoughts here before I go too much further in depth, but that's my surface level thoughts. I think it's a good deal. I'm not upset about it in the least. I don't think it's an overpay. I'm happy to have him for 7 more.
I'll take it a step further. I think you could say this may even be one of the most financially responsible contracts in the NHL. You could be calling this a massive underpay. I think if he had hit
hometown discount,
I think if you had hit him with the free agent market, you're probably adding another $2 million to $3 million to this.
Free agency, he probably would have gotten like $8 million for like 5 years or something
Easily.
Like that.
Yeah, you're telling me the Winnipeg Jets wouldn't have thrown 10 at him? Yeah,
probably they would have given him like 10 for 4 or something like that. But,
and also, I would just like to point out that I think anyone who thinks this is a terrible move is an absolute moron and has no idea what they're talking about and has never watched a game of hockey professionally in their life. So that being said, I love this move. This guy is absolutely going to have the C on his chest at some point. I know that
Captain Crunch.
I know it's going to be a very bittersweet day when that happens, but honestly, I could not pick a better guy for it to happen to. And I think all you need to know is the response you saw from Caps players on social media. You know, if you follow TJ Oshie, you saw his post about how excited he was to have this guy back in the lineup. You follow, you know, anyone else, John Karlsson, you saw the same thing. So this is just fantastic. I am so happy for these guys.
I think that's a really good point. I'm going to add one more thing here before I turn it over to the other two. I think that having a guy like this locked up on your team, no matter what happens with Ovi, with all the other stars, when they're going to leave, when it's time, no matter how good the team is or how bad the team is soon, having a guy like Tom Wilson locked up for this long and when he's eventually the captain, I think that's a huge, like if you're a free agent and let's say you're like a superstar goal scorer and you know, you're talking to the Capitals, they want you, you're talking to a couple other teams. I think there's some incentive to being like, well, I know I'm protected if I go to the Caps. Like I know they've got a dude who can like fucking defend my ass when I'm out there scoring goals and guys want to get chippy. I think it's a huge plus side to just have this guy, not just because he's good, but in terms of like attracting other players to want to play with him instead of against him.
Fair point.
Even if you want to take it to like the full like GM hat, if the wheels just fall off the wagon for Washington and for whatever reason they are like forced to trade him and they are forced to trade him at some point, that is a bargain bin of a contract, even like 3 or 4, especially 3 or 4 years down the line, because salaries for guys are going to keep going up. And with the career that Wilson's had and just the steady improvement, I think 6.5 for him at like 32 years old is going to be an absolute steal for whoever may or may not trade for him.
Yeah. I mean, is Tom Wilson worth $6.5 million at any given season right now? Of course he is. He's a unicorn, as the Chicklets guys call it. He fights, he scores, he does everything. I saw some people say 7 years. Oh my God. It's like, well, dude, you can't sign him for 4 because someone else will give him more. So you kind of have to bite the bullet. Like I think we can all agree, you know, when he's 36 and has, you know, 7 more seasons under his belt, is he going to be worth 6.5? I don't know. Probably not. Is like, but you're not paying for that. You're paying for probably the next 3 to 4 seasons while you still have Ovi on that deal. Anybody would do that. Anybody would do that.
I think, you know, even if you look at it from the perspective of let's keep him from going somewhere else, it's still the right move to make.
Absolutely.
But he obviously he wants to be here. So
I want to do a little fan fiction, as I'll call it. Let's talk Kuznetsov. Obviously, that's a hot topic for Caps fans right now. What's going on? What's the latest?
Well, as we've learned since, you know, from the year 2015, no one has any idea what's going on with Evgeny Kuznetsov. So,
yeah, but I've seen tons of like really reputable news outlets saying that Ovi wants him to stay.
Right, exactly. Well, turns out that the GM has actually confirmed that he wants out. So he's probably on his way out. I don't know if a deal gets done before the season. I honestly do not think a deal will get done before the season just because we haven't heard anything whatsoever about Kuznetsov being
Unless the
like
Bruins all of a sudden are like, shit,
right.
we have no
So
centers.
that one makes you think a little bit because they definitely need a center. So I don't know what the return from the Bruins would necessarily look like, nor do I know how interested I would be in that return, but
Same.
I don't know. I don't see a move getting done. Mac, what do you think?
I'm kind of with you. I mean, this is like you talked about at the beginning of the episode. It feels like the Ezekiel Elliott shit. It's like, how long are we gonna fucking talk about this? Wake me up when it's done. Until then, I don't really need to like think about it too much. It's just one of those things where it's like, we know where we all stand on it. Most Caps fans are fine with it either way that I've talked to, at least. They're like, well, if he stays, whatever, new coach, let's try it again, I guess. And then there's the, if we find a good deal for him, sure, see ya. That's kind of where I stand. So,
yeah. I mean, yeah, I feel you on that. Sounds like it's going to be one of those. Well, I'll do what Max said. Wake me up when it's over. I feel like we're going to wake you up when September ends here because I feel like it's going to be right before the season or something like that if it happens.
That being said, like the Capitals, and I know GMBM has said that he is still actively pursuing a top 6 forward. You absolutely still have to do something if you're the Washington Capitals. Your offense was 20th best in the NHL last year.
And it got worse.
And yes, so you need to do something else. You lost some key pieces, one of them to your arch rival. So you know what? Like, come on, figure it out.
Can we talk about how I kind of think losing Connor Sherry is like the biggest loss for the Caps so far. Like,
a rough one.
I think that's like the hardest part to like replace right now.
It's not like he's going to go there and not just have a 6th season because he's going to set a career high in goals, I'm sure, because that's what happens when players like that leave the Caps.
And that's also what happens when players play alongside like some of the league's best on one of the best teams. So yeah, he's definitely going to burn us and everyone else in the league. But anyway, we can move on.
It's good Caps chatter. We needed that in the EB space here, but couple more bullet points, and then we'll get to trivia, and we'll wrap it up here. Quick news, Cale Makar lands the NHL 24 cover. He is only the 4th defenseman ever to be the game's sole cover athlete, joining PK Subban, Dion Phaneuf, and Chris Pronger. This comes to us from JFresh on Twitter X. That's how I'm going to call it these days because I think it's funny. Only 2 of the past 27 cover players have made it past the first round that same season. Those 2 players would be Mr. Patrick Kane in 2010 and Vladimir Tarasenko in 2017. Useless stat that I'm going to end up using as like facts.
I love that so much. It's wild though.
But it's sort of like the Madden curse.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just not injuries.
Exactly.
It's playoff success.
Right.
Which is why there were so many comments like, this is why Sid has never been on it. I said, you know what? You're right. Sid's never been on it because he saw JFresh on Twitter, even though he doesn't have Twitter.
And that's why McKinnon's never going to do it.
Guaranteed.
Because Sid said no.
Yeah, follow the leader. Exactly. All right, moving on. We're going to talk about the QMJHL bands fighting for this upcoming season. Players who fight during a game will automatically be ejected and face a potential suspension. The instigator rule gets a 1-game suspension. The aggressor rule gets 2 games. If a player has already been involved in a fight that season, they will automatically be suspended an additional 1 game for any other altercations. First, let's chat about our opinions. I feel like I really know what everybody's going to say. I think it's stupid. Anybody else?
Stupid. We've talked about the potential of this happening on the show before. The reason it's stupid is because these are guys that are going to end up in the NHL. Once they get there, they're not going to know how to fight, protect themselves. Eventually, there's theories that this will lead to the NHL having less fighting, and then eventually they'll just ban it there too. They're trying to change the game. It sucks. I don't want to see it happen. Mic drop.
So, like, my thing, and I'm going to make this as short and sweet as possible, so bear with me, is if you've never played and you don't get it, this is how the game gets policed. This game moves at essentially 100 miles an hour. There's never going to be a time when the referee's going to see everything, or everything's going to get called, or everything's going to be, all hunky-dory between players. There's got to be some way for the players to police themselves and police what happens on the ice. This is how you do it. I think you're just going to see a massive amount of blindside hits, stick infractions, and hits to the head go up, which is scary. And I understand that what they're doing is trying to protect players, but I think it's going to have, like Max said, the complete opposite effect, because they're not going to know how to protect or defend themselves.
Extremely well said.
I retweet, even though that's not a word anymore. I repost what Nick said. Really throwing a lot of Twitter shade today. I'm in the mood. All right, question. Do you think this will leak into the WHL and the OHL? Yes or no?
I feel like it's probably only a matter of time. I mean, if this was like maybe the USHL or some other like smaller league, I'd say, yeah, it'll be a while. Maybe it won't happen. The Q is one of the big 4 junior Canadian leagues. So the fact that they've taken steps to go for this, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe even like 4 or 5 years down the line that the OHL and the WHL start throwing in the same rules.
I think without a doubt, if it's going to spill over, the O will be next. I think if they try this in the WHL, like people are going to full on riot outside of the Saskatoon Blades Arena or like something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
For those listening who don't know, the WHL is kind of known, the Western Hockey League. It's like the Western Canada portion of the country.
Just like think about any massive defenseman that threw like absurdly large hits in the early 2000s, and that's where they played in juniors. Shea Weber, that's all you need to know.
Put a bow on it. I couldn't have said it better myself. All right, we are gonna do 2 little discussion points, trivia, and then we'll be out of here. Just a reminder that this discussion topic is brought to you by Kane Footwear, who I think Nick has a word from.
That's right, boys. I have been hitting the pool a lot recently, and I can tell you that firsthand, there is no better feeling than hopping out of the pool when I've got absolute spaghetti legs after crushing it and just hopping right into Kane Footwear. Not only do I not really have to even dry off before I put them on, I'm essentially dry by the time I get back to the house. They're super comfortable. They help me recover, and they make me don't feel like shit the next day. So head to the link in our bio to get a pair of the most comfortable shoes you will ever own.
For sure. All right. Who is your way too early front runner for the most dangerous team entering the 2023-2024 season? You can give an East and a West one. You can just give one if you want, but who's a team that you think is going to be really dangerous?
I'm going to go first here because I'm scared everyone else is going to say this. So I want to say it first. Guys, I'm scared of the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't like it. I don't want to be scared of them, but they were kind of scared of me even last year. And I feel like they got better. And I mean, yeah, maybe the goaltending thing is like a playoff question mark or whatever, but like, I don't know. I think they're scary. That's my answer.
I'd have to say out of the East, since you took the Devils, I'm going to go with the Florida Panthers. I think they're going to be able to carry their momentum from the Stanley Cup Finals run, get fully healthy, and just be ready to rock and roll and be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference like they were the year before they made it to the Stanley Cup. And then quickly, as for the West, I'm going to say the Seattle Kraken. I have been on them since the first round of this past year's playoffs, with them upsetting Colorado and nearly upsetting Dallas. I think they didn't do a ton in free agency or trades, but I think a little bit of continuity, a little bit of good chemistry, and just general improvements is going to make the Kraken a very dangerous team in the West.
Gentlemen, do not sleep on the Ottawa Senators.
Ooh, I like that one.
I love this first line. Daily Faceoff has it as Kachuk, Stützle, and Tarasenko. Second line, line, Giroux, potentially Josh Norris if he's healthy again, and then Drake Batherson. So if Norris has a bounce back year and is healthy this year, that's going to be awesome. Let's talk about left side defense for the boys up in Ottawa here. Thomas Chabot, Jake Sanderson, and Eric Brandstrom.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be a sneaky team, I think.
And I didn't even talk about the right side, who your right side D1 is Jacob Chikrin.
Yeah, dude, I forgot about like a lot of that.
And let's not forget that they beefed up at Tendy and got Jonas Korpisalo in there as well. And then Anton Forsberg, as Mac, you and I know from fantasy, is a very capable backup.
Yeah, he can do it. He can do it. That's
Nick, I like that
that's
answer.
kind of nasty. Harry, who you got?
I got two. One kind of mainstream, and then one I'll give kind of like a dark horse, maybe. I think, and they're both out of the West. I think Dallas is going to be very, very good again. I definitely see them being a third round, maybe even cup final team. I love that addition of Duchesne. That third line test, Mac, Mason Marchment, Tyler Sagan, and Matt Duchesne. That's a nasty third line.
Damn, that is good.
That passes.
That is good.
Nasty third line. And then obviously you got the Otter and net. That's definitely one of the big catalysts for my pick there. Little dark horse action. Hear me out. I'm going to rock with the St. Louis Blues. They had a really bad year last year. Bennington is my big concern. I'll get that out in the open up front. But I do kind of like their forward core. I think I said this last year too. Bob, Tom, Shen. They added Kevin Hayes, Verana. If he can get healthy and everything, he'll be there. Kasperi Kapanen, as bad as he was for Pittsburgh, he showed some promise when he got to St. Louis. I like what they're doing in St. Louis, and defensively, I love their top four too.
Harry, we should have just not even recorded this episode. We should have just rerun the one from last year where we say the Bruins suck, the Blues are awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we said the Stars sucked too last year, so maybe
We
not
did.
that part, but we could have just kind of like edited together some of our old takes and doubled down.
We like our teams.
Well, it can't
like
be
our
wrong
teams.
twice, right?
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
That's not how it works.
this is a gambling show. That's how that works too.
I mean, Bennington, it's like you don't know what you're gonna get. So
Who
knows?
is that backup though?
Not Billy anymore.
Joel
Hoffer.
Oh, yeah, he's a
Hoffer's-
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I
there
was gonna
you
say
go.
Hoffer stands for Hall of Famer, so it's fine.
First ballot. All right.
And then last discussion point, and this is kind of just because we're in the dog days of summer, there's not a lot of NHL action, but in your opinion, and you don't have to go too in depth, but what's the greatest winter classic of all time?
Two come to mind for me. One that I feel like, if I'm being honest with myself, is just the correct answer, and I feel like we can all probably be real with each other and just agree. And then two is like my Homer answer.
All right, so your answer that we all agree with is maybe the first one.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
Without
And-
a doubt, that's the best one, bar none.
The snow, fucking
Yeah.
Pittsburgh and Buffalo, unbelievable.
at the Bills Stadium.
Because it was new.
Yeah.
It was just fucking magical. It went to a shootout. It was sick. Like, it was just so cool. So cool to watch.
And then
It
your
was-
Homer one is you watch David Steckel try and end Crosby's career.
Nah.
Oh,
That wasn't even a good game, honestly.
no, it wasn't. I
It wasn't.
agree.
They had to
really
like
was not
push
a
it
good
for an
game.
hour too.
Yeah, that was not a good Winter Classic, even though I was in attendance and had a great time. Caps Blackhawks. I actually thought that one was so sick. And with Troy Brower winning it with like fucking however, was it like 10 seconds, 5
13
seconds?
and a half. Yeah.
13 seconds left, winning it in regulation against his former team. The place was just going nuts. I was at that one too, and it was just so fun.
I can't pick against the first one. The fact
Yeah,
that they had
no,
to
that is the
stop
right
the
answer.
game every
It's the
10
right
minutes
answer.
to shovel snow off of the ice, like that
And
is
not
what the
like
Winter Classic
skate
should
snow,
be.
but like snow from the
Yes.
sky.
Yeah, like the real kind. Yeah.
Jay, what about you?
I have to go with a homer pick here. I think you can't get more iconic than hockey in Wrigley Field, aka the second Winter Classic game of all time. Yes, the Blackhawks lost, but Blackhawks Red Wings, when the Wings were still in the Western Conference, most iconic stadium in all of Chicago. Just fantastic atmosphere, high scoring game. I think outside of a Blackhawks victory on my end, you really can't ask for much more for a Winter Classic game.
Was that the one
Good one.
the year after the first one? Was that like 2009? Yeah.
Yes.
The
Yep.
Hawks had amazing uniforms for that, the black ones.
Was it the black ones?
I think
Oh,
it did
yeah,
have-
it was.
yeah,
It had the
yeah.
red and then the white. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. I remember that one. Obvious answer, first one. You're never gonna convince me otherwise. But because you guys knew that was coming, second place. This one gets overlooked a lot. I love the Red Wings and the Leafs at the Big House in Ann Arbor. I thought that one
That
was
was a good one.
awesome.
Yeah.
Went to a shootout, and I believe, fact check me maybe, but Tyler Bozak won the game for the Leafs.
I think you're right.
You don't have to fact check me on that. It's okay. But
I think like at this point with outdoor games, just fix
One a
it.
year.
Like, why are you trying to do them in places that aren't going to be snowing on that day? You should have like 3 locations set, and whoever's got the worst weather possible, that's where you do it.
Also, get rid of the stadium series. It's so stupid.
It's
Fucking
stupid.
So stupid. So
Yeah.
bad.
All righty. Well, we are going to wrap up with some trivia, which is brought to you guys by Elwood's, who I think Mac has a word from.
Yeah, head on down to Elwood's Liquor and Tap in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's out on Water Street on the main drag. It's a good time. You can bring your dogs along. You can watch hockey. You can play bags. You can play darts. Ton of fun. You can even see a giant poster of me, Nick, and Harry while you're taking a piss in the urinal. So what's not to love about all of that? Head down to Elwood's, buy some drinks, do a pizza luge, have a frozen pizza. It's just a good time. And stay tuned for some more collaborative news between Empty Betters and Elwood's coming soon.
All righty. Well, thank you everybody for listening. We hope you're having a wonderful summer. We will have division previews coming at you sometime in September, and then we are going to get rocking and rolling right when October 10th hits, opening night for the NHL. We appreciate you everybody for listening, and without further ado,
Class dismissed.